Hello and welcome to CEO Insights. I'm Marilyn de Guzman with Investing News Network. We are at PDAC in Toronto chatting with Ali Haji, CEO and Director of ION Energy. Hello, Ali.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Nice to meet you. Let's start off with just giving us an overview of about the company ION Energy and in the context of the global lithium market.
Of course, ION Energy is a company I co-founded in 2017, looking for lithium in Mongolia as a first mover. Right. We got our first asset in 2019. We went public in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. We didn't have access to country, but we were able to do some drilling to further de-risk our assets. Beyond that, in 2021, we acquired a secondary asset, so Urgak Naran, 29,000 hectares. Last year, we had a very successful year of exploration. We're sort of targeting inferred resource some point this year, and hopefully in the next a quarter or so, I should say. Of course, lithium is a vastly important mineral in the clean green energy revolution. And as a result of us being so close to the Chinese market, which of course is the largest consumer on the planet today, we think we're very well positioned to service that demand. And of course, prices for lithium have come down a touch, but I think that's expected as more demand, rather more supply comes online. But again, highly profitable in terms of where it stands in pricing today, and our history and track record in Mongolia allows us to really move our assets at a quicker pace than perhaps any other jurisdiction you may imagine.
So yeah, you're in an interesting area, and you've said in the past that your location is a core component of your value proposition. Could you expound a little bit more on that?
Certainly. Mongolia has about 1.5 million square kilometers. Population that's about 3.5 million people. So consider 1.5 times the size of Ontario with a population that's really just about the GTA. It's very sparsely populated, it's very resource rich, but it does have a very strong mining economy. So about 80% of the exports are mining related, which means you have the necessary skill set in country that is trained in mining to operate in country. That, for starters, allows you to reduce costs by not bringing expensive expats and ensuring that you are building a social license by employing locals to better advance your assets. And in terms of our location today, I think, again, being very close to China, within 23 and 150 kilometers of the Chinese border, where does the vast majority of the world's lithium come from today? Australia or Latam. And that's about 15,000 nautical miles from China, which is the largest consumer. So we talk about a clean green energy revolution, but we're putting lithium on the back of bunker burning oil ships, essentially, and shipping a product that's necessary for a clean green revolution halfway across the world for the production of a battery that perhaps will be used on another side of the planet. So having our assets that close to that large consumer, of course, reduces our carbon footprint. Being in a country that's very mining supportive and a jurisdiction that has been quite supportive of what we're doing, gives us that value proposition to really advance and recognize shareholder value.
So you're also bordered, so you're, aside from China, you're also neighbors to Russia. There's some geopolitical issues surrounding that, but as an explorer in this sector, how has that impacted your operations and the trajectory of your projects?
I wouldn't say it's affected us all that much, and I think we're a bit different from, say, a producer. As an exploration company, all the funds we raise reside in Canada, and as a result, we're able to pay our contractors directly from Canada. If you're operating in Mongolia and you have a final product that you're selling and perhaps you're receiving payment in US dollars, that's where you start to see a bit of a challenge. With the conflict in the region, the Russians sort of had a run on the Mongolian banks, which ultimately meant that we could not put out enough US dollars to help service various needs. In our case, we're sending our funding or our capital from Canada to help de-risk our assets. I don't think the US, I beg your pardon, I don't think the Russian invasion of Ukraine has affected our operations in any sense. If anything, the pandemic caused a few delays on the border with respect to equipment and hazardous materials. But for the most part, ION Energy has not been affected by any of the conflict in that region.
So you mentioned you started around the pandemic. That must have been very challenging in terms of you have this but you can't get to it. Tell us how was that?
A challenge in a true sense. I think you take a company public in August 2020 at a time when the entire world is in lockdown, and you're first movers in a jurisdiction that's never gone out looking for lithium. Our team consists of individuals that have helped build Neo-Lithium and Lithium America, so very seasoned exploration individuals. But we couldn't get them out to country. We leveraged our country in Mongolia to sort of scratch the surface on Babayul, which is our larger asset. We found grades that are almost twice as high as historical drilling. But last year, when the country opened up, we were able to go out there as a team. So myself, Mark King, Don Haynes, and various others visited the country to really advance our exploration program. So in terms of our, we talk about value proposition, where do we lie relative to our peers? We're a good 16 to 18, if not 24 months behind our peers as a result of being first movers in a jurisdiction without the necessary skill set to advance our assets. So now that we're in country, we've been able to advance not only the asset acquisition front. We completed a bought deal last year with PI Financial and Stifel GMP. So we're pressing on with our mandate of truly de-risking these assets and understanding the value proposition that they can provide for shareholders.
So talk to us about Mongolia. That's, how is it like, doing operations there? Because, we don't hear a lot about Mongolia. So just give us a sort of a rundown what it's like to be in that region.
Of course. The Mongolian government in general has been very supportive of us as a group. We've been there since 2009. Our first exit was in the coal space, where our chairman Matthew Wood exited Hunu Coal to Banpu of Thailand for about $500 million, 2011, call it that. We then started with Step Gold, which is a current gold producer in the country. And at that time, we also set up ION Energy. So we're long Mongolia. We've seen nothing but government support in terms of what we're doing. And for a jurisdiction that sometimes is negatively painted in the media with respect to their mining laws, I think one has to look only as recently as about 10 months ago, where Rio Tinto went out and acquired the outstanding shares of Turquoise Hill, essentially doubling down on an investment in the country, proving to show about $8 billion being reinvested into Mongolia for Oyu Tolgoi, the third largest copper gold mine. In our cases as well, I think, we look at STEP, we've had the government step forward with a, pardon the pun, but the government stepped forward with essentially $60 million for them to expand their phase 2 operations. And with ION Energy being a critical mineral, we've seen nothing but an outpouring of support. In fact, we're hosting part of the Mongolian delegation here, and we believe that it's a jurisdiction that's fantastic to work in.
Yeah. So if you're talking to an investor right now, what is it that you would like to tell them about your project or your location?
Absolutely. I think for any investor following our story today, I'd say we are as 18 to 24 months behind our peers, purely because we didn't have access to the country. We've of course assembled a team of internationally accredited and recognized lithium experts. We've had the opportunity to go to site about 3 times last year. We've been able to advance one of our assets from Urgak Naran in particular, essentially from greenfield to an inferred resource in the span of a year. And the grades that we're seeing today are rather promising. In fact, so much so that our press release that was out in December of last year showed that our average grade is almost 3 times as high as the only operating brine asset in North America. So that kind of indication at this early stage of the project is rather exciting. And as we start to progress through the year, I think you're going to start to see some numbers that will potentially show the economic viability of the assets that we hold in Mongolia, and then look to advance those as well.
Right. So what does 2023 look like for the company?
2023 will include a bit of drilling, see some hydrogeological testing on Urgak Naran, as well as an inferred resource calculation, at which point we will move towards measured and indicated, with the potential of bringing in strategic investors as well. So it's an exciting year for ION Energy, and I think you can start to see a fair bit of news flow following what we put out last week, for instance.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more news from your company, and would love to have you over again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us. Join us again next time for another interesting conversation on CEO Insights.